Everybody, welcome to the 2019 ceremony of induction. My name is Andrew Fry. Hopefully the feedback isn't too much.
Yes.
Yep. And I want to thank you very much for coming out this evening to celebrate this auspicious occasion. I am the staff advisor for the Charter Chapter of the National Honor Society, and it has been my pleasure to oversee the volunteer hours in which each of these students in front of us has graciously participated over these past 8 months. This celebration is a culmination of all of their hard work. Before we begin, however, I ask that each of you mute your cell phone rings and your notifications. Additionally, later in the evening, when these students are recognized by name for their achievements, I ask that you hold your applause until the very end after each student has been recognized. Additionally, for you fellow students that are going to be crossing the aisle here, be mindful of the cord that is there in the center running down the length of the cafeteria. On behalf of myself, Mrs. Jenny Coppins here to the far left of me, and a very grateful Charger Nation, we welcome each of you here. To officially begin the ceremony, I turn the microphone and the podium over to this year's chapter president, an outstanding student, an outstanding leader, and an overall wonderful human being, young Master Stephen O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. I'd like to start out our ceremony by welcoming our guest speaker. Born in Flint, Michigan in 1976, she is the proud daughter and granddaughter and great-granddaughter of proud auto factory workers. She is the first person in her family to go to college, and she graduated from Michigan State University in 1999 with a bachelor's in political science, and in 2001 with a master's in human resources. She is the co-leader of the Women of Michigan Action Network, a local politically minded group of about 1,500 people that seeks to do good anyway in our community by political action and community service and support. Her day job is the Vice President of People Services for City Year, a nonprofit. In fact, she spent her entire life in the nonprofit sector. In addition to City Year, she's worked for a shelter for the homeless youth, a free low-cost medical clinic, and a counseling and crisis center. Most recently, she ran for Michigan State Representative in 2018 for the 98th District, and she lost very narrowly with 48% of the vote. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome me in giving a warm welcome to Mrs. Sarah Schulz.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for that wonderful introduction. And for inviting me here tonight. It's one of the greatest honors of my year to be here with all of you and all of your parents. So some of you might recognize me from all those purple signs that sprang up all over our neighborhoods last year. And I have to tell you that it's pretty weird to start to see your name spring up all over your community. You should try it sometime. No, really, you should try it. Thankfully, for you and me both, I'm not here to speak about all of that specifically. I'm here to talk about two concepts that are important to me and to all of us. The ideas of servant leadership and the beauty of failure. So as Stephen mentioned, in my day job, I am the Human Resources Executive for an education-based nonprofit called City Year. City Year is an AmeriCorps-funded organization that puts teams of young people, not unlike yourselves, into high-need schools all over the country for a rewarding year of service to support students and teachers. City Year's main mission is to use service to end the dropout crisis. City Year and the National Honor Society have a whole lot in common, but the one thing that stands out for me, especially tonight, is service. Service to our neighbors, service to our schools, our nation, our communities, and to each other. I think sometimes when we think of the word service, we think of a couple of specific examples of service, right? Military service, public service like police officers and firefighters, community service, maybe even mandatory community service. But in addition to those obvious types of service, I think that we all can serve right from the ground that we're standing on every day in our positions as leaders, in our jobs, on our sports teams, in our clubs, and even within our community and groups of friends. In fact, I think there's evidence of a thing called servant leadership everywhere, if we just look for it. So if you could, for a moment, close your eyes. No, really, no one's closing their eyes. Close your eyes. And picture a tree in your yard. And if you don't have a yard or you don't have a tree, picture a tree in your neighborhood. Not just trees in general, a particular tree, and not a tree in an ornamental garden or for a memorial, just a good, solid, actual big tree. Okay, keep your eyes closed, but raise your hand when you have your tree in mind. Thank you. Now, think about the last time you noticed your tree. The last time you were under it and you took a second to stop and look up and really notice it. Okay, open your eyes. So I had a tree like that. It was this huge cottonwood tree on our family's lake property. Its trunk was so big that two people standing on either side of it could barely touch their hands together. Its branches, 3 sections up, were the size of trees themselves. It was at least twice as big as all the houses around it. This tree was in my life for my whole life, standing tall without fanfare, an actual constant force of nature. But a few summers ago, sadly, we had to cut it down. And it wasn't until the tree was removed that we realized the full impact that it had had on our lives and the volume of loss we would feel from its absence. First, there was this incredible loss of shade and protection from the sun. The hammock that we had strung from its trunk to another tree for years didn't have a place anymore. We had to reinforce the seawall from the lake's waves because the tree's roots were no longer strong enough to hold the ground together. The grating sound of jet skis on summer weekends was louder. Their rough edge noises no longer softened by the peaceful sound of the wind in its leaves. The very air we breathed was just a little less clear and a little less cleansing when it was gone. So I think that worker trees are the perfect metaphor for servant leadership. So a servant leader is a leader that focuses primarily on the growth and well-being of the people in the communities to which they belong. While traditional leadership is all about accumulation and exercise of power by the person at the top, the servant leader is different. The servant leader shares power, puts the needs of others first, and helps people develop and perform as highly as possible. And I think that we all can be that kind of leader every single day. Be the kind of leader whose roots are deep and hold us together. Stand tall over those we are serving, not so that we can be seen, but to provide protection and vision. Dampen the noise around the people that you serve so that they can be focused and clear and be like the very air we breathe, noticed most acutely when it's absent. And like the servant tree, a servant leader doesn't ask to be recognized. A servant leader is not an ornamental leader. And for a servant leader, like my servant tree and yours, The true depths of their loss are not fully realized until they're gone. About 5 years ago, a person who I was almost friends with passed away very suddenly. Her name was Holly Wallace. We were on the road to friendship. I admired her greatly, and we had a lot in common, and I could tell she kind of liked me too. And although I thought we had all the time in the world to grow into true friends, it turned out we had almost no time at all, so we were only almost friends when she passed away. In 2014, Holly ran for school board in Freeland, and she lost. I caught up with her right after the election to say that I was sorry for the election results, and she said to me, "Don't be sorry. It was the most wonderful experience of my life." And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. I had watched from afar and saw how hard she worked on her campaign. I knew how much she wanted to win, and here she had lost her election, and she was telling me that it was the most wonderful experience of her life, and I was certain that she was lying to herself and to me. It was about 4 years after that people started asking me to run for the Michigan State House. For 7 or 8 times when I was asked, I quickly said no. I knew the odds were massively against me winning such an election. This area hadn't elected a progressive candidate like me or a woman at all in 98 years. I had never done anything like this before. The mountain to climb would be huge, and the impact on my family would be tremendous, and at the end of it all, I would probably lose. Big time, and in a very public way. No way, I said 8 times. Find someone else. But eventually, slowly, I started to think of Holly. She was famous for ordering dessert first, always saying, "Life is uncertain, you have to go for it." I thought about what she might be doing if she were still alive right now in this climate, and I knew she would be lighting up our corner of the world so brightly that we would all know her name. I asked myself if she would say no just because there was almost no chance of winning, and I knew the answer. She would have already jumped in and had us all inspired enough to follow her. And so the 9th time someone asked me to run, I closed my eyes and I took a breath and I said yes. And I lost. I failed. Even though my team and I could not have worked harder, I failed. I failed on the front page of the Midland Daily News. I failed all over social media. I failed here in Midland and in Bay County and in Lansing. I failed in front of 200 family and friends and community members who had gathered together on election night to see me win. Do you know what? It was the most wonderful experience of my life. It was wonderful in so many, 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 many ways that I just don't have the words or the time to describe it to you tonight. About 3 weeks ago, I was helping my 5th grade daughter, Eleanor. She was trying to comb out a really bad knot in her hair, and we were talking about election night, and I asked her if she was still sad that we lost. And she said, "No, Mom, your speech was great that night, and you'll try again to do that or something else. It doesn't matter if you lost. You just gotta keep on learning and going no matter what. Now, can I have some ice cream?" And there you go. I've spent 42 years of my life avoiding anything that I was not 100% certain that I could succeed at. And here's my daughter learning about the beauty of failure at age 11. I hope it means that when the time comes, it won't take her 9 times to say yes to whatever opportunity is presented to her or she creates for herself. I am madly grateful that I had Holly in my life for the little bit that her light that she gave me in our short time together. She taught me to try, even, maybe especially, if I think that I'll fail. And she taught me never to wait again to make a true friend. She was a true servant leader and an inspiration, and I try to do everything I can to honor her wherever I can. So I hope you leave this room tonight and spend a few minutes thinking about my friend, my almost friend, Holly, and the beauty of failure. I hope some warm day this spring, you stop under your servant tree and take a moment to think about servant leadership. And I hope that you try the big, scary things. And you try even, maybe especially, when failure is most imminent, because in the attempt, you tend the soil. Like my friend Holly did for me, making it much easier the next time for you and those around you to take root and thrive. So thank you so much for allowing me to spend some time with you tonight.